Just because the real sequels actually come out, though, doesn't really mean that I'm gonna stop making S.T.H.M.I. I still have plenty of ideas, and the series will continue right where it left off.
Yup, that's not true in hindsight. So things will sort of continue in the way that they were before, except I'm smushing all of my plans up into this one video. Yup, we're doing what I had planned for the rest of the season in one shot. Happy season finale! Basically, after I thought about it for a while, I realized that the Sonic Movie 2 having released did impact the passion that I had for the current things I'm doing with S.T.H.M.I. I want to move on to a season 2 in which I'm free to be more creative. So, with all of that said, for the last time, at least for now, let's get into some Sonic movie pitches. Let's wreck on something I said last episode, that being that Sonic the Hedgehog 9 was a big hit as it was the conclusion of the second franchise. It was successful, don't get me wrong, and being the finale to the series was a part of that, but it was more of a moderate success. Just enough of a hit to break even and not be considered a total failure. If that wasn't bad enough though, Paramount, at this point, isn't doing great. They can't afford a franchise that sometimes brings big successes but sometimes doesn't, and unfortunately, Sonic seems to fall under that camp. If the next Sonic-related movie that releases is a failure, then Sonic is really in trouble. Well, I hear you say, that's sort of vague. In trouble? What kind of trouble? Sega being sold to Disney trouble, that's the kind. Let me explain. Okay, so, a while back, Paramount purchased Sega as it was just a smart business move at the time. Now that they've fallen on hard times though, Paramount will sell Sega to Disney if Sonic doesn't prove to be a profitable enough franchise. So, Sonic movies are in a tricky spot. What makes all of this even trickier though, is that the creative team behind these movies has to create a brand new series from scratch. The creative team doesn't know how to go about starting the new series up, only that they want the series to be a cinematic universe, as they find that new direction for Sonic movies compelling. After some deliberation, the creative team decided on an unorthodox idea, a Tails solo movie to start up the universe. This movie, called Tails, A Hero is Built, will show us Tails' origin, which in this universe is separate from that of Sonic. It's animated in a cartoony style similar to that of the second franchise, but just done better. The movie, which the creative team count on the unexpectedness of to be successful, flops. For the first time, they haven't been able to pull the series back from the brink. Sega is sold to Disney, and they couldn't stop it. Disney, having picked up Sega for its IP, tells them that if the next Sonic the Hedgehog related movie is a failure, then effective immediately all things Sega will stop production. Disney essentially does this as a test, as they think that applying pressure might make the next movie a smash hit. The creative team, stressed out beyond belief, decide that they won't let fear control them. If, like what their peers tell them to do, they make a more traditional Sonic movie, they won't be able to create something special and worth watching because they won't have any passion for the idea. So, even though it's basically career suicide, they choose to make a Tails sequel, calling it Tails 2, Sonic the Hedgehog. I figure I'll mention this now. Tails' arc in this movie is a continuation of his from the last movie, that being the theme of being brave. This movie also introduces Sonic, who in this universe starts off as a complete jerk. His arc in this movie is that he's changed by Tails and becomes a better person, a hero. This change in personality for the better is consolidated by a scene in which he, to his knowledge, sacrifices his life for the greater good. Obviously though, Sonic survives. They do this whole thing with Sonic to differentiate him from his other two movie versions. The movie is beautifully animated, as it has a full-on Disney budget. The ad campaign for this movie is really solid, featuring Sonic heavily in the commercials, and that leads to this movie being a humongous success. Although, hardcore Sonic fans are sort of split as to how they feel about Sonic's interpretation in the movie. The series and Sega, as a whole, are saved, and for that, Tails 2 did good. Sonic is saved, and Disney now allows the creative team the freedom to make a bunch of movies. Now, 2 movies down, the creative team publicly announced, through Disney, to general audiences, that they intend to make these movies into a cinematic universe in the same vein as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They released the movie Sonic the Hedgehog, A New Generation. This, obviously, is the first solo Sonic movie in this universe. It continues his story from right after Tails 2. Tickets sell like gangbusters. Dr. Eggman releases. As it's Eggman's first solo movie of all time and there's no need to differentiate it from the other movies, it has no subtitle. Anyways, I figure I'll mention this now. Eggman was introduced as the antagonist in the previous 3 movies. Here, we mainly get some of his origin and where he is now. It's a hit, as it's connected to the surprisingly fruitful cinematic universe. Now that Sonic, Tails, and Eggman have been set up, the creative team decide that it's time to end Zone 1. Zones in this franchise being the equivalent of phases in the MCU, with a team-up movie. The movie, titled The Freedom Fighters, details the end of the world of the Sonic cinematic universe as we know it. Infinite is introduced in this movie, after perhaps having been featured in a post-credits scene in the Dr. Eggman movie. In this movie, it's made clear that Eggman is out of his league in his dealings with Infinite, though, and by the end, Infinite cuts ties with him and almost kills him. Infinite, towards the beginning of the movie, takes over Mobius, leaving Sonic and Tails no choice but to join a small ragtag group called the Freedom Fighters. The roster is basically what you'd think it would be, featuring Rotor, Sonic, Bunny, Sally Acorn, Tails, Antoine, and Amy. The Freedom Fighters aren't able to defeat Infinite, as he's just too powerful, but they do get some small victories here and there. This movie does really well, being the most successful movie so far. Come to think of it, as of Zone 1, every movie has done better than the last. Moving into Zone 2's first film, the creative team decide to wrap up the Tails trilogy. The movie's all about Tails in particular, and the rest of the Freedom Fighters to some extent, adapting to the new world ruled by Infinite. It's called Tails 3, Adapting, and marks an important development in the franchise as the series that started it all is now over. After Tails 3, audiences are treated to Sonic the Hedgehog 2, 2006. In the movie, the Freedom Fighters are trying to experiment with new ways of taking down Infinite. Through their experiments with the multiverse, they're able to open up a portal to another universe, that being the Sonic equivalent to our Earth. The movie is subtitled 2006 as a reference to Sonic 06. In the movie itself, though, it's because time works differently in that universe and they are in the year 2006. This movie introduces us to Shadow. Building off of the hype set up in Sonic 2, we get a Shadow solo movie, called Shadow the Hedgehog Maria. After that, we get Dr. Eggman 2, Metal Sonic, which shows us the birth of one of the Mad Doctor's greatest creations. I think it'd be cool if Eggman specifically built Metal Sonic as a way of hopefully beating Infinite, as he's just so powerful. Following that, we get Metal Sonic Team Sonic. This movie takes a lot of its arc from Metal Sonic from Sonic Heroes, as it's his first solo movie. We also get a solo Knuckles movie called Knuckles Origins that introduces the character. With Knuckles having been introduced, we launch into Freedom Fighters 2 Sonic vs. Knuckles. A major plot point in this movie is the rivalry between Sonic and Knuckles, culminating with them fighting towards the end of the film. But Zone 2 doesn't end there, instead giving us a little epilogue TV show to wind things down before the franchise gets to Zone 3. Think the movie Ant-Man for Phase 2 of the MCU. This show is Amy Rose Season 1. This is cool because it's the first bit of TV made for this franchise. Zone 3 kicks off with Dr. Eggman 3 Infinity. The movie's main plot revolves around Eggman and Infinite, making sure to build Infinite up as a big threat, as this zone is the culmination of everything that's come before. Essentially, think Infinity War, Endgame, and just Phase 3 of the MCU in general. Following that, we have Metal Sonic 2 Metallics, a film that borrows heavily from ideas originated in the Fleetway version of the character. After that releases Sonic the Hedgehog 3 Showdown. Sonic, unlike every other series in the Sonic cinematic universe, will continue past 3 movies. Sonic's movies, like the others though, will be contained as trilogies. In Showdown, we get to see a bunch of awesome Sonic action, with some of it even being against Metal Sonic / Metallics. The movie Knuckles 2 Chaotix introduces the Chaotix team. Season 2 of the show Amy Rose drops. After that, Shadow the Hedgehog Maria 2 releases. The end of the zone is upon us, and before the epic finale is released, audiences are treated to the movie Infinite, a solo movie used to build up the character one last time. The finale is upon us as Freedom Fighters 3 Conclusion drops. By the end of the movie, Infinite is defeated. He isn't killed though, as that's just a line that our heroes don't want to cross yet. But Zone 3 isn't over yet, as a brand new show drops to tie up loose ends and cool things down. That show, Season 1 of Freedom Fighters Cleanup, details to us just how the Freedom Fighters go about re-establishing the world after Infinite's rule. It's the final entry in Zone 3 and, by extension, this first 3-zone arc. Zone 4, specially titled the Finality Phase, starts up with the movie Infinite 2. It explores where Infinite is now after his defeat and capture. After that, we get Sonic the Hedgehog 4, The Portal. In it, what's left of the Freedom Fighters experiment some more with the multiverse, at some point accidentally bringing Blaze to their home universe. Following that movie, we get Knuckles 3, Blaze. In this film, an awesome friendship between Knuckles and Blaze forms. She's so heavily featured in this movie to keep hype for her character up. Building off of the excitement for the character, Season 1 of the TV show Blaze releases. With some multiversal shenanigans and character introductions out of the way, Zone 4 starts really showing what it's all about with the movie Infinite 3, The End. This movie serves to once again build Infinite up as a threat. This is the second Infinite movie this zone, as he'll die by the end of it. Also, The End won't just be the subtitle used for this movie, but a unifying brand for the rest of the zone. Pretty much every movie from here on out in Zone 4 will have the subtitle The End. What's better than one numbered Sonic the Hedgehog solo series? I'll answer that. Two of them. The Sonic movie Sonic Adventure, The End, introduces audiences to the Sonic Adventure movie series, a trilogy of films that'll run alongside the main Sonic movies. The series is fun as it gives others the chance to work specifically on Sonic films. The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, as well as other Sonic cartoons throughout the years, have featured some pretty wacky characters. So, in Season 1 of the brand new series, the Sonic cartoon, The End, some of the funniest ones are reinvented for the cinematic universe and placed in a team-up, beefing up the universe's selection of hero teams. After that releases Metal Sonic 3, The End. Following that comes Amy Rose Season 3, The End. We get Shadow the Hedgehog 3, The End. Freedom Fighters Season 2, The New Freedom Fighters, shows us the formation of the new team, formed to fill the void of the old one just in time for the finale of Zone 4. Speaking of that finale, The New Freedom Fighters, The End, releases. It's a truly epic finale, with Infinite almost destroying the entire universe and a couple of core characters dying. It's everything that Sonic fans wanted it to be. It's a satisfying finale. Have you noticed something strange during this video? I haven't talked about how successful each movie after Zone 1 was. That was no accident. I was holding off on that info because I wanted to tell it to you now. Every movie after Zone 1 did slightly worse than the last one did. In fact, even the fan-pleasing The New Freedom Fighters, The End, bombed. The reason why? Most likely oversaturation. But for whatever reason, by the end, people didn't even care enough to gather in bulk for the finale. It had already been done. Sonic movies had basically ended twice already. This wasn't how things were meant to go. In fact, the creative team had plans for many more zones. Those plans, though, were unfortunately cut. The thing is, though, that the end of this specific series didn't just mark its own demise, but that of the entirety of Sega. Disney shut down basically all things Sega, with only a couple of products continuing to be sold. Sega was dead, and Sonic movies had killed it. 8.5 years later, a man is walking home late at night with that month's issue of IDW Sonic clenched in his hand. In his other hand, the phone he's using to talk to his friend. He enters his house and puts the comics in his Sonic Toast-inspired comic binder, before finding himself looking through it and reminiscing on the good old days with his pal. An idea flashes in his head. He wants to save Sega. And to do that, he's first gonna have to save Sonic movies, which have been dormant since 8.5 years ago. Who is this man? And who is his friend? Well, they're both the sons of the top dogs of the old Sonic movie creative team. The idea they have to save the series is a bit more on the ground at first, though. They want to relaunch the old Sonic movie tie-in comic, the one that ran alongside of the first franchise. Getting even that up and running, though, will be a challenge. They, in disguise, the next day go to the CEO of Disney with the hope of tricking him into greenlighting the comic, as the main IDW series has been the only Sonic comic in the market since 8.5 years ago. They, in the intense confrontation, are luckily able to trick the CEO into signing the go-ahead for the series, which he thinks is actually some sort of mundane business deal. The two men quickly get to work and to secretly assemble a small, underground, creative team to craft the first issue. It sees a small time jump having occurred since Sonic the Hedgehog 13. Sonic is older now. Anyways, Tom is in the hospital due to some sort of accident at his job, and Sonic is having a hard time dealing with it. Sonic doesn't want to lose another parent, so, to comfort him, his siblings come around and hang out with him. The tie-in comics were always a great way in the past to fill in blanks and further develop relationships, as the movies had limited time to work with, and Sonic's rich relationship with his siblings is a great example of this. Anyways, by the end of the issue, we see Sonic running across Green Hill Zone in Mobius as Eggman, thought to have been imprisoned, watches him from afar and laughs maniacally. That's the cliffhanger that the issue ends on, and it's a big hit. So much so that the CEO of Disney gets alerted of it and heads down to see the two men. Instead of punishing them though, he gives them an offer, it being to helm a brand new Sonic movie. They accept, and the first act of the new movie is a shot-for-shot remake of this first issue of the comic. The movie does finish up the story though, and by the end of it, Eggman is defeated for now and Tom is okay. Sonic the Hedgehog 14 is a smash hit, and Sega is pulled out of the Dark Ages. So, everything's great. Sega is saved and back to normal. More Sonic movies are going to be made, and even the Sonic movie tie-in comic will continue. Now, the creative team just needs to follow all of that up with another good movie. Sonic the Hedgehog 15 is an adaptation of Sonic Colors, expanding on all of the cool ideas present in that game. This movie serves as an interesting end to this weird trilogy, as the first movie in it, Sonic the Hedgehog 13, ended the initial run of the series, the second movie in it, Sonic 14, brought the series back, and now, in Sonic 15, we're seeing it pick up right where it left off all those years back with the Unleashed adaptation. Needless to say, this movie is successful. Before they move on to the next trilogy though, the new creative team wants to do something that's long overdue. Shadow the Hedgehog 3 releases and shows us Shadow's new life with Maria. It's less action-packed than the last two, but it still has some good stuff in it nonetheless. It's successful. Following that comes Sonic the Hedgehog 16, which starts up the 6th trilogy. It's an adaptation of Sonic Generations, taking the concept of that game and fleshing out the story in a glorious display of Sonic movie fan service. In the film, classic locations and moments from older Sonic movies are revisited. It's a hit. After that, we're treated to Sonic the Hedgehog 17, which is an adaptation of Sonic Lost World. There's actually some cool stuff in this movie, as it takes the colorful villains and Mario Galaxy-esque landscapes of the game and runs with it. It's not as big or bombastic as the movie before it, or the movie that's about to come after it, but it serves as a nice smaller adventure that fleshes out the world. It's successful. Sonic the Hedgehog 18 is the first in a series of 3 movies that will adapt Sonic Forces. That game had so many cool ideas, and these movies will serve to flesh them out. In these movies, everything about Mobius and Earth will be destroyed, as Eggman takes them over. I think that in order to do this story justice, it needs to be spread out across 3 films. This movie is successful. Following that comes Sonic the Hedgehog 19, the start of the 7th trilogy. As stated before, this is the second of the 3 Sonic Forces movies. It's successful. Coming after that is Sonic the Hedgehog 20, the last of the 3 Sonic Forces movies. It's also successful. The Sonic Forces adaptation served to destroy everything that Sonic had known and loved. By the end of it, Eggman was defeated, but what he did could never be reversed. Sonic the Hedgehog 21 deals with the reconstruction of the world after the Great War and how the cast of the series deals with it. Oh, and I'll mention this here, the tie-in comics did so much with the Sonic Forces adaptation, showing us different characters that sometimes got little or no screen time, as there was just no time for that. An example of this is Shadow. We see his happy life fall apart, and how he deals with essentially the apocalypse. Anyways, the end of the 7th trilogy is successful. Sonic the Hedgehog 22, the start of the 8th trilogy, is an adaptation of Sonic Frontiers. As this game hasn't come out in real life, I don't actually know what the story of this movie would be. Anyways, this will be the last trilogy of this Sonic series. The movie is successful. Sonic the Hedgehog 23 isn't an adaptation of any game. Rather, it's a fun little adventure that starts to put the pieces in place for the series to end. It's a success. Sonic the Hedgehog 24 releases, and it's not an adaptation of any game. Instead, taking a page out of Spider-Man No Way Home, we get to see all three movie franchises Sonics unite. We don't only get to see the main three movie Sonics interact though, as a multitude of Sonics from other realities, including OVA Sonic, make brief appearances. This movie serves as a great celebration of all of Sonic movies and also serves as the finale to this Sonic movie series. So, it's a multiverse/finale movie, and, if you ask me, that's a great way to send off this beloved version of this character. This movie also serves to get people hyped for the revivals of the other two Sonic movie series. The film, being an exciting cinematic event, is a humongous hit. The middle Sonic movie franchise is brought back with the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 10. This movie, as well as the other two in this trilogy, which will be the only one made for the second franchise, will deal with the multiverse. This movie specifically is framed from the perspective of a Sonic from later in the trilogy telling the story. Anyways, if Sonic the Hedgehog 24 was reminiscent of No Way Home, then Sonic the Hedgehog 10 through 12 will be reminiscent of Into the Spider-Verse. The movie is a hit. Also, I'll mention this now, the creative team, at pretty much the release of this movie exactly, are able to free Sega from Disney. They hired lawyers and successfully convinced Disney into letting them be their own solo company again. The creative team, before they move on to making Sonic 10, want to do something that's long overdue. They make the Sonic OVA 3, and it's a moderate success. Sonic the Hedgehog 11, as stated before, deals with the multiverse. It's a success. After that releases a brand new season of Sonic Prime, bringing the show back. It was successful. Following that comes the release of Sonic the Hedgehog 12, which, as now stated twice, deals with the multiverse. This one also ties in a little bit to the new season of Sonic Prime, as well. The movie serves as the finale to this series, and is a hit. Okay, so let me explain something really quickly. I promise it'll save us both some time in the long run. We are now getting into the reintroduction of the Sonic Cinematic Universe, and instead of every time telling you that the movies and shows were a success, just know that they all are. I will list the name of the movie or show, and then maybe give its broad synopsis. If I haven't come up with one at all, then, I don't know. I'll figure something out on the spot, I guess. Anyways, the creatives are entering the last stretch of their time with Sonic movies, so let's check out what they did. Sonic the Hedgehog 5, a new trilogy. As the first film in Zone 5, titled The New Beginnings Zone, this movie kind of just serves to reintroduce Sonic. Also, it has a weird subtitle which was only chosen for marketing purposes, as actually this is the second film in the second trilogy. Freedom Fighter Season 3, Chaos, TV. This season introduces us to Chaos, who will be the overarching threat of this zone. Chaos, in this world, is a water creature that can change forms on the fly, providing a real challenge for our heroes. Blaze Season 2, TV. As in Season 1, we get to see a lot of Blaze's home dimension. Sonic Adventure 2. This movie is used to make sure that audiences don't go too long between solo Sonic movies. The Sonic Cartoon Season 2, TV. A new season with the team. Sally Acorn Season 1, TV. Long overdue, a solo series for Sally to further develop her character. Sonic the Hedgehog 6, Chaos. This movie furthers the Chaos plotline. Bunny and Antoine. This is a buddy cop type action movie dedicated to furthering Bunny and Antoine's relationship. The new Freedom Fighters 2, Chaos. This movie wraps up the Chaos plot and is the second to last movie in this zone. Blaze Season 3, TV. This season acts as the epilogue to this zone. Sonic the Hedgehog 7, Planet Earth. As the first movie of the last zone that the team will make, Zone 6, this movie simply gives us a Sonic adventure in which he heads to Earth. Eggman will be the overarching villain for this zone. Bunny and Antoine 2, a sequel to the first duo movie. Figure I'll mention this now, all three of these movies take stuff from S.T.H.M.I and the Archie comics. Sonic Adventure 3, the final Sonic Adventure movie. Sally Acorn Season 2, I figure I'll mention this now. All 3 of these seasons take stuff from Sad AM and the Archie comics. Sonic the Hedgehog 8, The Death of. The next Sonic movie. As it's the second to last one, it starts to put into place some of the pieces for the last one. The Sonic Cartoon Season 3, Annihilation, TV. This season ties directly into the story of the new Sonic trilogy. Bunny and Antoine 3. Since this zone will be the last one, this movie needs to release now. Sonic the Hedgehog 9, The New Regime, the last solo Sonic movie. Sally Acorn Season 3, TV. Similarly to the Bunny and Antoine situation, this show needs to release now. The New Freedom Fighters 3, A Hero Gives His Life. In this epic finale to the entire series, Sonic, by the end, sacrifices his life to save the entire multiverse. I figure I'll mention this now, but Sonic's sacrifice sort of mirrors Tails' in Freedom Fighters 3 conclusion. Anyways, while Eggman isn't killed, he is permanently defeated, and with that, the Sonic Cinematic Universe has concluded. The creative team's time with Sonic movies is over, and they know that. They watch the bittersweet premiere of the new Freedom Fighters 3, A Hero Gives His Life, and after that, just lounge around, sort of sad, at a bar. They aren't quite ready to let go yet, but at the same time want to move on. One of them suggests an idea, though, to help everyone out, a binge of every Sonic movie. Everyone heads to one house and, together, watches all of the movies. It takes a long time, but by the end, everyone has accepted their time with the franchise is over and moves on. It helped them cope. Anyways, though, that's not the end of Sonic movies, as a brand new creative team are formed to make a brand new series. That, though, is a story that you can think about for yourself. Anyways, thank you if you've watched this, and have a good one. I'm excited to eventually start making Season 2 of S.T.H.M.I, and I hope that you tune in then as well. Until next time, bye.